So the people that brought us Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Impact 3rd, and a bunch of other gacha games that are coming out soon, potentially bringing us a realistic, maybe, military shooter game. So I was scrolling on Twitter and I saw this post here, which I did then go over to MiHoYo's website and look at the job listings. And it's true, these job listings are posted. And the last time I took a proper look at something like this, it's going back like over a year ago now. And there was pre-research for a bunch of games. And a lot of those games turned out to be Petit Planet, Anima Nexa, Varsapura, and the other game, that fantasy one that we haven't really seen much about now, the one that almost looked like it was like a Souls-like game from that little tiny vignette that we saw that was a few seconds long. And they all came to fruition. Now we're potentially seeing an Unreal Engine 5 realistic shooter. So rather than go through all the jobs listings here, this person's put up a couple of posts. So I thought, you know what, we'll use Dramic's post here. So shout out to Dramic for putting this together. As I say, I've checked these job listings here. They're pretty much here, but they had their own little spin on it too as well. But we've got job postings, and it's actually, it's kind of surprising, but not surprising at the same time. It's MiHoYo, right? MiHoYo are huge. And one thing, all the things you can say about Hoyo, for me, they try new stuff, right? They're gacha games that they're making. They are trying to do different things. Petit Planet, they're trying to corner a different part of the market. Nexus Animal or Animus Nexa, they're trying to corner a different part of the market. With Star Rail, they did. With Genshin, they did. With ZZZ, they did. You know, they're definitely trying new things. And now it seems like potentially they're trying to actually go out to the global mainstream market with this. Now, we don't know how this is going to be monetized, right? But I would assume that a realistic shooter with some of the things that they're talking about here would be insane if it was monetized with a gacha system. But then again, it's Hoyo. Everything they make turns to gold, so maybe they'll make it happen. But I would be surprised if they went with a gacha system unless it was like some sort of skin gacha. Oh, let's have a look at some of these posts here, right? So they've got a bunch of different job listings, and they want to switch away from Unity to go to UE5. And that comes with some positives of incredibly high fidelity, but also UE5 can be a bit sloppy, to say the least. And it's synonymous now with badly optimized games that tend to look very samey in the space. But that's all on the developers to really work with the engine and give us something that can look unique, right? So there's postings for lead combat designers that's going to highlight and focus on realistic ballistics and weapon weight, an authentic firearm feel. This is an arcade shooter. It's tactical. Now, we don't know about that, right? So this could be anything from something that's a little bit like Call of Duty, all the way to something that's like Squad. I think it's probably going to be somewhat in between. In my head, I think of something like Arena Breakout Infinite, where that's doing like Tarkov Light. Now, who knows what this is going to be? An extraction shooter? Maybe. A PvE game? I don't know. A PvP game? A PvPvE game? Who knows? But when they talk about realistic ballistics here, again, that might mean it's just not hit scan and there's actual ballistics with bullet travel, or it could go down to things like velocity, you know, different round types, actual bullet drops, all this sort of thing, right? There's a spectrum when it comes to realistic ballistics, and a lot of developers use terms like realistic ballistics, and basically it just means it's not hit scan and the bullet's got an actual physical travel through the map, right? They also mention senior level designers, and they want to build high fidelity urban environments. So actual urban environments instead of a fantasy world. We're potentially going to get something. Well, it could be an urban fantasy environment, but it makes me think realistic ballistics, weapon weights. We're going to look at, it's going to look something like our world, right? Akin to our world, which makes you think, are we seeing them dropping anime here? Is this going to be the first, like, fully fledged MiHoYo game that I know of that's not going to have the anime twist to it? That's going to be something that's going to be like a, you know, it's going to look like a traditional game in that regards and not have the anime aesthetic and art. So they also are looking for a technical artist that's dedicated to physics and destruction, and they're using the Unreal Engine's chaos system to create environments that react realistically to gunfire. So, does that mean just we're going to get like ballistic damage from small arms fire? Are we potentially going to see something like old school Battlefield, like Levolution type stuff? Maybe more like new Battlefield, where it's just a bit more lower scale destruction? Or maybe even again, once again, something like the finals, where it's like full on destruction. Who knows? It does mention like bullet impacts in these posts here as well. I can't remember which post it was in where they do mention this as well. So, we're looking at something that's urban, realistic ballistics, real weapon weights and authentic firearms feel, and actual destruction, environmental destruction as well, using the chaos system. So, they're hiring for ecological AI and tactical NPC behavior as well. So, it's interesting to see there then. So, if we're going to have tactical NPC behavior, there's obviously going to be some sort of PvE element to the game. So it's not just a full-on arena-based shooter where you're going up against other people and fighting in a PvP environment. There's some element of player versus environment, player versus NPCs. So whether this is something akin to an extraction shooter once again, or maybe potentially a tactical game where you go out on runs in a co-op fashion against the computer. Who knows with this, right? But I do find this actually quite interesting. It's not surprising because Hoyo, and I think they seem to like try their hand at anything. But it's still surprising to see the people who've made all the games that we know in the gacha space now looking at something like this as well. So they're looking as well at vehicle systems, actual vehicle systems. So this is where I'm like, are they trying to challenge Battlefield? Are they trying to challenge like Arena Breakout Infinite? Are we getting, what are we doing here? Like, but it seems like they're thinking big, at least anyway. Mentions vehicle systems again. Say goodbye to the anime style. The character artist emphasize physically based rendering. So it doesn't totally mean that we might not have maybe something that's akin to, you know, sort of like Korean style games. You know a Korean game when you see it, right? Where it might be wholly much more realistic in terms of the actual models and stuff, but maybe they'll still have a little bit of a twist in regards to the face. But we're looking at something that's probably going to be a lot more high fidelity and much less aesthetically styled to the typical gacha style, right? So it makes me think here then, is this Hoyo's attempt to branch out to the global market, you know, to really get their brand out there in the global space? Now, obviously, of course, there's a massive market in CN for shooter games. Of course there is. It's huge, right? But this definitely screams like a game to me that that definitely wants to reach out to the global audience. Because there's one here as well where it mentions talking about like the high fidelity, ultra high frame rates, achieve ultra realistic, ultra high frame rate visuals. So, of course, that still could mean mobile, right? But it's like, are we maybe even seeing a departure from mobile for Hoyo? I think that'd be less of a likelihood than them doing what they're doing now, right? I would still think we'd be seeing it on mobile, but who knows? Mobile phones are capable of a lot of things nowadays, but could we really see a game running on phone that has actual like full-on destruction, ballistic realism? And if we do get to the levels of having full-on ballistic realism of something like Tarkov and other games as well, Squad and, you know, PUBG and stuff like, you know, games that have got bullet velocity and bullet drop and all this and then add that all in with destruction and vehicles and high frame rate and high graphics, a mobile's going to be able to handle that for the most part. But hey, you know, there's a lot of games that do run on mobile that you wouldn't think would. You know, PUBG does, Arena Breakout does as well. So maybe they'll find some sort of middle ground. I would imagine it's Hoyo. I would assume that we get a mobile game. But if this is their attempt to reach out to the global audience, maybe they see this as, okay, we've made a lot of money off Gacha. let's try to get into new areas now. Because at the end of the day, mobile phones do hold back game development to a degree, right? Maybe this is their attempt to. Let's see if we can make a good amount of money with a PC/console game. Who knows? Who knows? I just thought this was actually really interesting, to be fair. But yeah, let me know what you think down below about Hoyo potentially making a realistic shooter game, potentially with vehicles and destructible environments. I think it's kind of insane. And no anime styles as well. That's a little bit more of a reach, but maybe. I'd love to know what you think down below. Guys, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all in the next one. Ta-da.